Welcome to the football show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Delighted to have your company, and thank you for supporting us Monday to Friday on the show, and of course on the Saturday with Tam for the results show on Saturday evening from 4 o'clock till 6. There's so much content on our channel, not only on the YouTube channel but right across all the website and our social media channels as well, and your support is greatly appreciated. Today, well, it's Tuesday.
Is it?
It's Thursday.
It was Thursday.
Is it Thursday?
Is it?
It's Thursday. It's Hugh McDonald. I'm losing it, Hugh, aren't I?
Don't talk to me about losing it, Arnold.
Yeah, it's it's Thursday. They changed him and Tam Cowan. They changed their days so many times. It is Thursday, so we're going to talk football. We're going to look at last night's win for Motherwell. Finally getting a win. I haven't won it for parts since August, and they're also on the lookout for a manager. We'll talk about one of the men who's been in there, Ian Holloway. We'll also look at what's happening ahead of the Scottish Premiership fixtures at the weekend. We'll hear from Michael Beale and Liam Fox, the Dundee United boss, and we'll throw in David Martindale for good measure. How many shows are on 5 days a week giving you all of that? And we've got a belter of a quiz question today, which I think is really going to tax your brain. But first and foremost, every week, all the way through to the summer, we're going to give you a chance to win something special. And I think this week's is a goodie.
Another fantastic competition from PLZ Soccer. You can win this iconic replica Ajax shirt by answering this simple question. How many times have Ajax won the European Cup? Post your answers in the comment section below. If you want to double your chances of winning, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Good luck.
Yeah, it's a good one. Adam there just telling us exactly what you have to do. And well done to Gerard Murphy, I think it is, who won the Celtic book from last week. And also Andrew Boyd, who contacted us when he heard his name about the Rangers book and the history of the shirt. So it's a really good prize, a really good read. And I think those books will be winging their way to the two guys before the end of the weekend. This week, if you can hit the subscribe button as well, it'll double your chances of winning that brilliant top. And next week, Hugh, it's just over your shoulder there. I haven't told anybody about it, but it's a belter, isn't it?
Oh, and I'll be entering under an alias next week. It's a surprise next week.
Yeah, it's an absolute cracker. Okay, what about the quiz? Here it is. We often look for just one answer, but I just think we'll up the ante ahead of Barcelona against Manchester United. Can you name 9 players that have played for both Barcelona and Manchester United in the last 40 years? Ruffy, I have now cranked it up. 9 players that have played for both Barcelona and Manchester United in the last 40 years. If that doesn't get our viewers and listeners thinking, I don't know what will. Do you want to have a stab at a couple of them?
Can I go 2?
Just go 2 to get people on their way, and then we'll give you the answer.
2, I'm going to go Mark Hughes. And I'm going to go Henrik Larsson.
Yep. Okay, there you are. That gets people going. That's a start, isn't it? So they played for Man United and Barcelona in the last 40 years. We've got 9. There may be others that we haven't thought about, but I think that's a good list.
9's a terrible. I mean, I go with a real struggle. I get 4.
4, yeah.
4. It was struggle, and there was certain ones where you go, you know, when you get an answer, when you know the answers and they give you, it's like, I knew that I could have got. Nah, I'd have been. I couldn't have got. No, I couldn't have got the 9. I couldn't have.
No, absolutely. There's about 2 or 3 in there that I thought, wow, it's a toughie. Anyway, it's a good quiz question. It'll get you going, and thank you very much. Matt's already on it, trying to name a few. You never know. Thanks to Rob Nisbet, who joins us and says, afternoon guys, great show. We really do appreciate Rob. So many. And Jason Craig says, jeepers, that's a hard question today. Jason, to be honest with you, we just thought to ourselves, sometimes it's really easy. Let's see if we can up the ante with one that'll get you thinking throughout the programme, and you can enjoy the chat as well. We will talk about Barcelona against Manchester United and all the other fixtures that you can look forward to in UEFA competition, the Europa League tonight, and we'll discuss the Champions League as well. So let's get into the meat and bones of it all, Ruffy. Motherwell 2, St Mirren 1. You've picked up 5 points. Look at your face. You're the only one actually who picked up 5 points.
Yeah, I just thought a new manager or a new person in the dressing room, a new voice. You know, the players keep coming out and saying, oh, we'll let the last guy down. So maybe they're going to roll their sleeves up and you've got to say it was going to happen sometime. They weren't going through the whole season. I just thought St Mirren getting beat 5 by Celtic would take a wee while to recover for that. But no, they hung on in there. They weren't all over St Mirren, but I'm quite happy with 2-1.
Yeah, another thing about it is when you do get a 5-pointer, on the show you tend to elaborate on how in-depth that you studied it and looked at it and assessed it, whereas when you completely make a duff of it, you kind of move over and just say it's guesswork.
Yes, it is. Well, most of the time it is guesswork because we're just, thinking how it might go. But I'm pleased for them.
Yeah.
And Tam Cowan's pleased as well, if you've seen his posts.
So he's delighted. So is the caretaker boss at the moment, Stuart Kettlewell.
What is a process? How do you act as a coach or a manager? And I'm never going to get away from that now. You need to start there. You need to start there, and then, as I say, you can start to be cuter and clever, smarter in senses when you've earned the right to play. We play in Scotland. We need to remember that sometimes as well. Yeah, we would love to pass the ball to death. Yeah, we would like to go and create loads and loads of chances, and you'll get there. You will, but you need your platform to get there.
Yeah, basically Stuart saying you're going to have to graft for it. Of course, St Mirren, I think there was actually a strange stat, Hugh, that there were more St Mirren players with more appearances for Motherwell this season than the actual team that Motherwell put out.
Yeah, it was a tremendous. I'm not a great stats man, but if you get a really good stat,
you've got to pay homage to them, haven't you?
And it was an ex-employee here as well that came up with it. So I was a topper,
Who was it?
Was it Andrew McLean that used to be here?
Is that right? Andrew worked for us, yeah.
I'm sure
well,
it was.
Fair play to him.
It was him, and his tweet I saw, and I went, oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's a good one. Well done, Andrew.
How many was it?
6.
6.
So
and the amount of appearances as well. They'd played more times for Motherwell than the whole Motherwell team.
Yeah.
So it's, when you look at it, it becomes quite obvious, when you talk about Carson, etc., etc.
Some goal to win it though from Johnson.
Yeah, and the most.
Think he meant it?
Let's give him the.
I think so.
Let's give him the benefit.
I think the way he actually chested it over and hit it.
Let's give him it. Another thing as well, though, any win. That's what they want in Motherwell. It's any win. It's so cliche, but any. I actually think there's not that much between the teams. We've mentioned this before. I think after you drop between Hearts, and then after you look at the quality that's in Hibs but has not come through, the quality that is in Aberdeen and not come through, after that, I don't think there's much in the teams after that, in terms of it. I think if confidence gets sucked out, which is obviously what happened at Motherwell, you can plummet.
Yeah.
And they'll be sitting this morning feeling really good about themselves and having stopped the plummet and saying, I think it was a smashing phrase of Kell, we've got the foundation, we can try and build on this.
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of those nights, Ruffy, I went out for a meal and then ran into my nephew who's a big Motherwell fan, him and his 2 mates. They'd had a few scoops and I thought it's getting mightily close here and Motherwell are ranked rotten. Are you really going to the game? But they trapped and eventually saw Motherwell win. So I think all the Motherwell fans were just going there and saying, just give us something to cheer.
I thought it was a decent enough crowd as well. I think it was about 4,500 in a sort of cold night. So they're hanging on in there, which is a good thing. Sometimes the supporters desert you when you're on that kind of run, but that'll keep them going for a wee while. Yeah,
disappointing for St Mirren, but I think Stephen Robinson was able to look at a positive from this one.
It's a setback, that's all it is. It's 3 points we wanted, but remember it's only 3 points, so we have to not get too carried away. To be where we are at this stage of the season is an unbelievable achievement for the club in terms of the position it's in at the moment. And we're being tested to the full in terms of our options and our squad with injuries at this moment in time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a setback, but he puts it in perspective. I still think St Mirren are having a good season. He certainly won't want them to drop off you, will he?
They're having an excellent season. Okay, they got pumped out of the Scottish Cup by Celtic, but that I would suggest would not surprise anyone. I think what surprises most people is the way they've progressed up that table, sitting there. I think they've got a good shape about them. I think they've got goals in the team at that level as well, where that can make all the difference in their season. It seems like a cliche again to say that, but it's so tight down there. If you get your strikers firing, I mean, you know, sort of last year with you know, Tony Watt, Motherwell got him firing right up the league. Curtis Main's doing so well with St Mirren. They usually play with a 2 up front as well. So yeah, I think they've had a great season.
Roger doesn't like talking about Motherwell clearly because he says, just change the subject. Did you know that Hugh used to write erudite literary reviews in the Herald? Now that gives an indication of what age this boy is, because
I certainly wrote literary reviews, whether you could call them erudite, and I don't know. I was once, believe it or not, the literary editor of the Herald.
yes.
Which,
What happened, Hugh?
I know, then all went to,
Where did it all go wrong?
Where did it all go wrong? I mean, which was one of the great jobs of my life, actually.
Yeah, just reviewing books.
Well, yeah, and being in charge of the whole books operation, like
What
features.
was that department like, Hugh? Was it just people who just...
Yeah, I had to wear a cravat.
Yes, I was going to say to you. Yeah. And your sandwiches were just wee triangles?
Oh, we wouldn't do sandwiches unless... might have sandwiches at tea.
Brilliant, Ruffy. Yeah. Honestly, those days you could just make up a department and then just swan about, you know.
Yeah,
That's the best, the ultimate job that I would really love.
To be in charge of suave people.
No. It would be just to be head of something at UEFA. And what you do is you just walk around a corridor and then go to a few meetings and then get out into the corridor and walk around again and then saunter out.
Always holding a piece of paper.
Yes, and then go for lunch in Nice before any kind of a draw.
Or Geneva this week. That's where they're all conducting themselves this week, I understand. So, yeah.
That would be the ultimate job. I mean, if you could think of your ultimate job, that's certainly one of them. I know, Ruffy, I know why you're smiling. It's because I've been with you 10 years. I know you wanted to replace Hugh Hefner, but other than that, there are some jobs that would really be absolutely fantastic. Here's the Premiership table after that win for Motherwell last night. Certainly looks a little bit more positive. We don't have the Premiership table. It's in my list, but we don't have it at the moment. We will try and get it to you. I think the one element of last night's, as far as the predictor's concerned, Ruffy, I was 1 point behind you, but with your 5, you're 6 points ahead now. You happy with that table? There's no point in trying to be positive about you. He's just thrown the towel in, but 2-2-2 plays 2-1-6, and then it's Tam on 210, Alison mid-table mediocrity at 183, Tam Cowan 180. I'll tell you, Hugh, why don't you do one thing? Just a weekend of 21 points, if only for one thing that we want, right? And it's not about, you know, you suddenly, we know you're going to take everybody out for a meal, but the one thing that we want is you to get a 21 pointer, Tam Cowan to overtake Alison to be within 4 or 5 points of you and really panicking, because that look in her face would be fantastic. After winning last season with that condescending look she gave us,
true.
It would be brilliant.
Not far away.
You know?
No.
Copy me one weekend.
Exactly, if you could do that. Here is the table, by the way. We're on, you know, the great thing about
that one last night for Motherwell was put a wee bit of pressure on St Johnstone to come back into the fold. I'm not too sure what the fixtures are the weekend, but
look at how tight
there's some
it is,
people
Ruffy.
going to get dragged in. You know, the cut-offs, what is it, 28 again? Something like that. You know, that there'll be a lot of them looking at the fixtures I've got coming up and going, like, particularly the home games, we need to start winning these games.
St Johnstone Dundee United immediately is up. That's a game.
Yeah, but as soon as you hit the break, and then you have to, once that split comes and you have to play all the teams around you, then it really does. Because as you said, if there's not that much between them all, it's cutthroat.
And if the split comes up and you get 3 home games, I would say that any manager in the bottom 6 would be saying, we can beat anybody in the bottom 6 on our day at home. They're bankers. So and that'd be 9 points. That would, I mean, it is congested down there. And the thing about it as well is that the punishment for going down is so severe.
Absolutely. Here's a good line from Hugh Scott. He says, Hugh, it's time to tip Rangers for a win, and let's get Alison at the bottom of the predictor. You know, if you could just go through a run of 4 weeks, Rangers to win, it would just catapult you up there close to it.
Aye, but I think my strategy is to take this as As loosely as possible.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
look where it's got me.
Well, Rab says, my gran does a live painting club and they're looking for a new model if Ruffy needs some pocket money. How big is the canvas? That's the thing we need to know, first of all, Rab, before we even enter any negotiations to send them over to you. And Steve McNamara says the only way Motherwell will go down is if they get Holloway in, then it's cast iron bottom, because Ian Holloway, said he was interested. He likes Scotland, follows the game. Ian Holloway, we're led to believe Jack Ross
And Gavin McCann.
and Gavin McCann. It's a short list. Is it filling the Motherwell fans full of excitement if Ian Holloway come in?
Well, as I said the other day there, if Ian Holloway comes into that boardroom and gets interviewed, it depends on the questions and what the answers are for me. Why does he want to be up in Scotland? Why do you want to be here? And then see what his answers are. I really do prefer a Jack Ross or a Jim Goodwin, who know the Scottish scene, they know the Scottish players. But Stuart Kettlewell, if he wins in a couple of games, you've got to look at him. They've got to say to him, well, you've dug us out the hole a wee bit till the end of the season.
Yeah.
In term.
I don't think you can do that, Ruffy. Football's got to be the only organisation in business where you look and you say to yourself, well, it hasn't worked out with a legend. Now we're going to gamble on somebody who's, has had a run before at Ross County, but it's still, everything's a gamble, but is it not see the three clubs that we were talking about, Hugh, is it not experience that you need for Aberdeen to get themselves into the European spot, for Motherwell to get away from the relegation, from Partick Thistle to get themselves into the playoffs? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, and you've got to remember the way they went with the sort of strategy behind Stephen Hamill was, all right, we've got a bit of a bouncer, let's go with him. To do that again would be dangerous, I think.
Especially at this time of year.
Well, I just think that now we touched on it, that this is a really serious business now. Going down into the Championship is a really serious business, because in the Championship next year you're going to have presumably, if it's fought out between immediate guys to go up, is fought out between Dundee and Queen's Park. You're going to have the losers of that still in the Championship. You're going to have Inverness, Cali, who I think have been really unlucky this season with injuries. They might be back. You're going to have maybe an ambitious club like Dunfermline coming up. You're going to have the tough teams that are already there in their growth. Thistle will be looking to improve. It's not a division where you can just sit in. I mean, Dundee United proved that. It's not one you just bounce down and bounce back up.
No, absolutely not. I must admit, though, if Ian Holloway came to the Scottish game, he really would brighten it up.
Yeah.
And not that I'm being critical of other managers who are there, because there are times when there's great moments of fun, managers who give us brilliant lines, but he really is a character. And I think at times he's proved he's a good manager.
Yeah, I think he is. He would add something to the game, I think his interviews would be very good, to be upbeat, But the question is, keep saying, when you ever get into an interview, the first questions you've got to convince them of is why you've been a failure the last time you were in. Because everybody that applies for that job has failed. So they have to come up with a reasonable answer that, it was because of this or because of that or because of that, and look what I've done before that, these are the biggest questions for me.
I mean, he took Blackpool into the Premier League. I mean, that'll be engraved in his stone.
Yeah.
Charlie Adam always spoke really well of him.
Yeah, he did, actually.
Not just he said, right, he's a fun figure and all that, and he's a good part, but as a real coach, I mean, Charlie was fulsome in his praise at Holloway, and I always picked up on that, because you don't get okay, good copy, good pattern, all that. There's got to be something behind it when you're talking about taking Blackpool into and keeping them there and being competitive.
Yeah.
And he had been headhunted by other teams.
Yeah.
When he was out of a job, so the other teams must have seen something that he's done.
Queen's Park Rangers is he had a good wee run there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the Scottish Premiership fixtures for the weekend that you can look forward to. Celtic against Aberdeen on Saturday is a cracker. Dundee United against St Johnstone. The Hibs take on Kilmarnock. It's Livingston against Rangers, and then St Mirren take on Ross County, and then on the Sunday, I think we'll get two Ross Counties. I think we're having
a shift, doesn't it?
They really are. They're going to. they're going to play that again. It's funny, Ruffy, but every now and then I just look at some of our graphics and I'm getting a wee bit worried about them. But Ross County are not playing on the Saturday and the Sunday because I think their manager would be out giving them absolute pelters for that. But on the actual on the Sunday, I think I've got Kerry heading out to Motherwell against Hearts, which is A-OK. So Motherwell against Hearts on the Sunday and not Ross County. My apologies for that. Livingston against Rangers. We sent Kerry out first and foremost to see what was happening at Ibrox, because there's a new part of the stadium now where fans can get that whole match day experience at Edmiston House. It's been developed, and Michael Beale was out there chatting today.
Today, Michael Beale has been looking ahead to his game on Saturday against David Martindale's Livingston side in West Lothian. He says it's going to be an extremely difficult game and that the pitch will play a big part in it. But with a cup final looming over their heads, does that affect the team selection for Rangers? Short answer to that question was no, it doesn't. But in terms of fighting for the league title, is there enough time to claw it back?
Well, I think if you looked at probability, the probability is low because the games are running out, like you said, and there's only so many games left. I think we're in very, very good form, so Celtic are also therefore in very, very good form, and their forms run longer than ours, so you would say it's outstanding form. What I would say is momentum can change things in football, and so all we have to do is keep doing our job and hope the momentum changes. If it doesn't, we still have to win games for Rangers and build our team stronger.
Ianis Hagi has spent over a year on the sidelines through injury, and he says he's doing everything he possibly can to get back into Michael Beale's Rangers team.
Well, those are the games that you always wait for. I think that's my day-to-day motivation in football, winning trophies, and you want to be involved in these type of games and help the team in every aspect. And it's a little bit early for me to to have to play 90 minutes or 120. You never know, but I'm ready to if the gaffer will think about me, I'm ready to go as much as he wants to.
It's nice to see Ianis Hagi back. I thought there was a moment before he picked up that injury, Hugh, where he really was looking every inch the player. He was contributing with goals. He can pick a pass.
I can. He's a very creative player as well. Very dangerous in that final third. And injuries always are devastating, especially the injury he's had. It's kept him out for a year, but it did happen precisely at the wrong time. I think it'll be. I would imagine it'll be managed very, very carefully on the Livingston surface on Saturday. Certainly, if Beale wants him in his match day squad for the cup final, I wouldn't put many bets on him starting.
Well, I was going to say, I wouldn't even put him on.
Yeah, I would. You keep him for the big game at the Hampden. But it's a tough fixture for Rangers, especially the weather forecast suggests that it's going to, in Scottish terms, blow a hoolie on a plastic surface. A team that is just taking a pumping against Inverness Caledonian Thistle.
Yeah, I don't think we saw that. Yeah.
So
I can understand why you were a literary review, specialist. Taking a pumping. It's just
You're allowed to do that.
so like Charles Dickens' new book is a Brammer. I think that was one of my. That was just, and then some of the plots, and that was quite a stramash of the plots and some of the books. That was my literary style.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, there's no point in bleating on about it. I don't like the pitch, but I think when you get to a situation where a manager will undoubtedly be thinking, Ianis Hagi, the last thing you want. I often look at Mikey Devlin's career and I say to myself, that plastic pitch, really set him on the road to two really bad injuries.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Any manager or any club that goes there, they'll have certain players who don't like it. They just come back for injury, and you can argue all day long about it, but you wouldn't risk somebody who's going to their ankles or their knees or whatever. So I agree with both of you. I don't think he'll play either. I think there'll be certain players that will play. I never saw that Inverness score coming with Livingston, so they'll have to pick themselves up, because as the Rangers manager was saying there, they're on a good run because they're winning and picking up points. I didn't think they played particularly well last week against Partick Thistle. You know, they weren't firing on all cylinders. I know they threw in 3 or 4 players that hadn't played for a while. Maybe that was the reason. But, you know, I think with that result with Livingston and Inverness, I think Rangers will go there and handle that quite easily.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the injury worries are always the big thing for him as well, and what type of team he's going to be able to put out there. Connor Golson, Nicholas Raskin, they've picked up some knocks in recent games. Lundstrom could be back in there for Saturday, which would be a real bonus for him.
That's the kind of player you want. That's the kind of, you want somebody who's got big, strong, muscle guy, you know, a bit of, you know, force about him in the midfield area, and he'll have to dig in there, and the surface he won't be a guy that's going to go, I don't think I want to play him that.
Would be the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what's happening in that Livingston camp? Well, Kerry's been on her travels today. She was there to find out what David Martindale had to say ahead of the game.
Here at Livingston today, David Martindale is preparing his players for their next challenge that awaits them this Saturday here at the Tony Macaroni against Rangers. Striker Joel Newbley, who has already scored twice against Rangers this season, says he thrives in the bigger games and is hoping to do so once again this weekend.
Yeah, because I feel like every player probably believes they like can play at a certain level. They believe they're one of the better players. So if those are the best player, best team in the league, those are the teams I want to compete against to see if I can match, because that's where you can really test yourself and see how good you are. And see, so far when I've played Rangers, I feel like I've had good games, so hopefully I can have another one on the weekend.
The Livy boss is under no illusions of how difficult Saturday's game is going to be, but he says he's familiar with the way that Michael Beale plays thanks to a friendly game in pre-season against QPR, but says the new Rangers boss will have a few surprises ready for them this weekend.
On paper, you're looking at the personnel, it probably looks the same, but when you dissect the game and you look more into the detail, there's I'm not going to say a lot of changes, but there is big differences, key differences. There's a lot, the attention to detail in certain areas of the park. I can see what Michael's trying to do opposed to what I would say Gio was doing, and that just comes from two different styles of management. I'm fortunate that I think this Rangers teams are not too dissimilar to what they've been under Stephen when Mick had a huge influence on the coaching at that point, so it's not too dissimilar. Look back at when we played QPR, it was only 90 minutes, but I could still see that was a Mick Beale team going into Saturday's game. I would like to think that we understand how Rangers are going to approach a game, but Michael will have a few things up his sleeve, no doubt, and he's got something. I think they've recruited very well in the January window. They brought some really creative players into the building, and that's going to be a test for my players and myself.
Can Rangers close the gap at the top, or will Livingston give their supporters something to shout about after last weekend's cup disappointment? It all takes place here at the Tony Macaroni, 3 o'clock this Saturday.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. He's caused a bit of consternation, obviously. David Martindale, I think it's always good to get a manager's assessment of playing against a Celtic, playing against the Rangers, and then seeing if there's any great differences. He thinks, based on the managers coming in, the form, the way they've played, the results that they've got, that there's not too much of a difference between Celtic and Rangers now.
Yeah, well, as we said, that's his assessment. Facts, the points gained would bear that out, because both Celtic and Rangers have gained the same number of points since Mike Beale's appointment. Celtic have stretched slightly in terms of goal difference. But the fact of the matter, we always ask people for opinions, and then we shout and ball when they give them. It's an opinion from one manager. But the fact of the matter is that it'll be decided over the longer term. It'll be decided. We're now coming to the real crucial part of the season. We've got a League Cup final looming. We've got Scottish Cup
possible
quarterfinals anyway, and possible confrontation there. And we've got the league matches, 2 league matches to play, and the league to be won as well. So it'll all come out in the wash, as they say, and Walmart used to say, it'll all come out.
And the other great thing about it as well is the way social media is now in the platform where everybody has a say on it. When David Martindale mentioned that today, the whole place goes absolutely mental because everybody's got their opinion on it. But I think the key to this is, barring a slip-up, a slip-up will take the edge off the 2 remaining league games. If Rangers were to slip up and Celtic continued and extended that 9-point advantage, I think people would look and say, well, listen, Celtic could afford to, slip up in one of those games and still saunter to it as many times. When you remember, we're all old enough to remember Rangers winning 9 in a row, Celtic winning 9 in a row. There were times when they could say, well, it doesn't really matter that game. You can celebrate your Old Firm win, but if the other team is winning the league all the time, it's like a little blip on their record. Other than that, it doesn't matter. It's about who wins the title at the end.
Exactly, and another thing about it as well is like, Beale's right about, like momentum, building something and going, but the momentum with Celtic's been relentless. You're going to have to say that, Celtic's lost 1 game in the league this season, and then.
But can you imagine a cup? Can you imagine a cup win for Rangers? Suddenly the game at Celtic Park coming up in the league, Ruffy, takes a dramatic twist, doesn't it?
The cup puts you in overdrive. It puts everybody in overdrive. It has the supporters, it has the players, it has the manager believing. But Celtic are still going to be beaten by somebody else. I think in the league situation, as you've just touched on it there, Celtic can afford to drop points. I don't think Rangers can afford to drop anything. Anything. Because if that 9 goes to 12, it's impossible.
I agree with you though, the cup, what a cup can give and how it can sort of galvanise and enhance the manager and especially a new manager, because we know Beale's got a history at Rangers, but he's a new manager. And it can enhance him, and you only have to look back to last year, the way it did with Postecoglou, Ange Postecoglou, because that League Cup win was so dramatic. You've got to remember that Celtic, were at that time only considered real strong championship contenders by the most strong of their support. It was supposed to be a rebuilding season. It was supposed to be a season of getting players in and getting the shape and the structure right, and then going again. They won the League Cup, and then everyone's on the table. Rangers come to Celtic Park, blown away, and the whole season's changed.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this has got everybody on the edge of their seats, because the next month or 2 is going to be blistering as far as the top end of the table. And for all the people who offer their tuppence worth on Rangers are better, Celtic are better, there's not much between them, as Hugh rightly points out, we are about to find out in the next couple of weeks anyway, and we'll be covering, of course, the League Cup final, the Viaplay League Cup final, and giving you all the previews to that one as well. Really looking forward to it. We'll be on the Saturday with previews of it for the Sunday occasion. As well as looking at those games, we'll be obviously keeping ahead of the Saturday fixtures to see if there is indeed any slip up between Celtic and Aberdeen. That's going to be an absolute belter at home for Aberdeen. Still looking for a manager, still waiting to try and get someone in there, and that looks as if there's no real rush. They're going to wait till the end of the month, Ruffy, and let Alan Burrows obviously have an influence on who they think the best candidate should be.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one.
It is, isn't it?
A strange one. You could easily pick up the phone. I know he's still with Motherwell, but you could easily pick up the phone and say, what's your input here, Alan? I know you're not coming to the end of the month, but what are you thinking? And then get an idea. But to wait, it's okay saying wait when you're winning, but if they were to lose the next 2 or 3 games, then people will be quite rightly saying, why are you waiting?
It'd be naive of us to think that hasn't already happened anyway.
Yeah, I think so. I think probably with some kind of osmosis, obviously, Peter, because we're not. Oh, yes, it was. That's me getting back to my literary
stuff.
days.
Yes. We should have set you a task today. We should have come up. We should have gone into the office there and said, right, if you can get this word in today in the show, it would be absolutely
I'd
fantastic.
have to bring in a dictionary.
Well, who cares, Ruffy? As long as you got one in there.
That's a good one. Give me that again.
Osmosis.
Yeah, it's good stuff, isn't it? Yeah,
it's an impressive one.
Yeah, absolutely. He moved from Arsenal. He moved from Arsenal to Barcelona.
You don't have to know what it is. You just have to know how to pronounce it.
And therein lies the department that he used to work in. Okay, from Celtic against Aberdeen, who should be the Aberdeen manager? Who of the candidates that have been mentioned so far? I know. Dave Cormack has mentioned that some of the suggestions are wide of the mark, but listen, that's the joy of looking at it and throwing in a few names. Sometimes there's a name that comes in that nobody's thought of, and then Bob's your uncle, he's in.
With Mr. Glass, didn't it? First time, and I didn't think he would be in the forefront of anybody's expectations.
Yep, and he came in and look what happened there. If we're talking about managers under pressure, I don't think I'm doing him a disservice to suggest that Liam Fox really needs to try and get Dundee United moving in the right direction, similar to what happened with Stuart Kettlewell last night. Dundee United at home to St Johnstone, and I think the Dundee United boss is seeing positive signs on the training ground. Hasn't happened when they take it into a match situation, and it's the old adage, you need to play the way you train.
That's absolutely at St Johnstone. Team full of experienced, good players, really good manager. But see, these are things that I talk about to players on a daily basis, and that was probably my frustration, was that this wasn't an easier reaction from me. And what disappointed me is that they didn't do the things I know that they can do.
Yeah, I think he's referring to something that surprised me at the weekend when he said, they just haven't been, applying themselves. He was having a wee dig at the players.
He's under pressure, so you will have it. I mean, emotions are high in these times. I mean,
sometimes, though, if you dig players, what players are like, they can sink you.
So players, especially nowadays, players can absolutely sink you. I think as well as if you talk to really experienced managers as well, and I feel know this as well, that a lot of managers now decide not to speak to players after the game, not to address them, to just say bland things, so they can, so the emotion can come down. Because you can just imagine that this guy knows his job's on the line, knows his career's on the line. He's just had a disappointing result. He's dragged into but he comes into a press conference. Everything's going. Fight or flight mode going, and sometimes you can say stuff that might come back and bite you. And I think this weekend is a huge game for him. I mean, it doesn't take much to say that, but this is a game where they've got to be looking at winning because they have plummeted in recent months. More questions I've asked of them. The other game that I'll be looking at as well is Hibs v Kilmarnock, because Derek McInnes, because of his pedigree, people presume that Derek will be able to get the team out of that.
Yeah.
I don't know if he will, because they don't seem for me to have too much up front. Their away record is terrible as well. So there's an awful lot to fight for at the bottom, but the first thing for Liam Fox and for Dundee United is to win on Saturday.
Yeah, who have you got in relegation and then playoff?
I think Kilmarnock and Dundee United, it's changed a bit. I always thought Kilmarnock would struggle coming up because I didn't see goals in the team. I didn't think Dundee United would struggle, and I always thought Motherwell would struggle as well for similar reasons. And you always get the feeling that Ross County will do enough, don't you? You just
absolutely.
To get out of it.
Okay. We shall see how that all pans out. Just one little story, Ruffy, that caught my eye that I thought, I mean, it's not something that's highlighted just as a unique story. It's an ongoing story with mental health issues that goes on week in, week out. Please forgive me. Ryan Stevenson in the Daily Record today mentioned that in his life, he contemplated suicide. I thought it was quite an honest interview he was giving. But again, I think it's indicative of you know, players nowadays who, you know, once the football lights go out, it's very difficult to get used to being out there looking for a job. And if you haven't got enough money to settle down, you have to look for other areas. And I thought to myself, I can see great similarities with someone like yourself who played at the top level, but then you have to go and get involved in real life.
Yeah, you've no backup, you've no experience of doing anything else, because when you're playing football you think you're going to play forever. You don't think there's going to be a stop. I mean, in my era, you never thought of being a coach, being a goalkeeping coach or anything. You just finished your career. And I remember, as clear as anything, I remember Paul Kane at Hibs, and Paul was only about 18 or 19, and I was 36. And I remember at training one day he said to me, "What are you going to do when you finish?"
Oh, I know.
And I went, "Finish? When will that be? You know, when's that going to happen?" And that particular day made me think, what have you got? What backup have you got? You've no backup in particularly education or anything like that, or business studies or anything. I think it's moved on now. The clubs are taking people, young kids, to business studies and university, and they're doing things like that. But in my era, it was nothing.
I know. I was going through as a literary editor. I'd got all my old shoot annuals and out of the loft the other day there, Ruffy, and I came across one of the question and answers with you back in the 70s and the early 80s when you described yourself. What would you be if you weren't a football player? And you said, a pallet maker.
That was the joke. That was a joke, because the pub that I used to run across the road, we had a pallet making company, and 4 or 5 guys used to come in and go, "Oh, you're going to be with us, you'll be with us soon," you know. And that's when I did that, it was only a throwaway line in that
yeah, so really not accurate then. You kind of
that bit wasn't accurate. That was the only bit that wasn't accurate. I just threw that in there. But you're right, it's a horrible experience when nobody wants you. When you've been idled, you've been an idol for not all the time, but at a particular club you've been looked up upon and people patting you in the back, and then all of a sudden that's all taken away from you, and really all you've got is your pals.
Yeah.
All you've got is your pals that you've met through your career, and if they're not looking out for you, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Did you find that? I mean, I'm not.
No, I did. When I had nothing to back up, I had a friend called Donald McCorkadale who owned a company, and he said, "Alan, look, why don't you come in and do a wee bit of PR with us?" And if it hadn't been for him, what else would I have done? You know, and I hear that story from a lot of people of particularly my era, and even before my era. I remember the Players' Union, and I think it was Tony Higgins that was charged of the Players' Union. He actually had a meeting in a hotel about players who'd stopped playing, and it was before me. It was like Alan McGraw. And players like that who'd picked up injuries and
terrible knee,
and nobody was looking after them. Nobody, no work or anything, and they were trying to do a fund for that. So I don't think it's thing me more the now than what it was a way back. But I can see where Ryan Stevenson's coming from. You're isolated, and if you've got nobody to talk to or nobody to help you, then you're going to struggle.
Did you have a dark day where mentally you were like that?
Oh, I must have done.
Yeah.
Oh, I must have done. But I think for me it was all financial, because your financial ability to survive is taken away from you.
Yeah.
You know, and that happens, you know. But the mental thing, I think there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
There must be, particularly as I keep repeating myself, if you've not got pals running about you, who do you go to?
Yeah.
Who do you talk to? That's why I think it's good that the Players' Union are saying, look, if you are struggling, come and talk to us, or we'll give you somebody to talk to, because you've got to talk to people. If you don't, if you just sit in the house and don't do nothing, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, when I was reading the piece today, I actually thought back to, you know, there are times when you and I do have serious discussions, 2 days in the year, where we sit down and chat about things. And I automatically thought of you, because I thought to myself, well, not only Ruffy, but so many of the players around you, there was no safety net. No. You know, although Tony would have grafted as a very, very good union rep for the PFA, they've no money. And there certainly wasn't a structure in place where he could have called on lots of people to help players in difficulties. So I thought Ryan Stevenson's piece today and that message and the message you've just put out there, Ruffy, is something that everybody, I think will value and realise that they're not on their own.
I had another thing, and I brought this up before, and I do believe that clubs are doing it. I think clubs should take more interest in past players. If they see a past player, they hear a past player's maybe on his downer, or maybe and bring them into the fold, whether it's doing PR, going around the games, or meeting people, because there's far too many that just say, oh, well, you were here for 10 years, but we're not really bothering. But I'm not saying all the clubs do that. There are clubs who do, bring in players and look after them. And I think the more that should be looked after, we are going to have a lot of players, obviously, really struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to thank so many people on our feed, Hugh, who've just said, Peter, take a drink of water. I thought I was going to keel over there. But the good thing about our viewing and listening public is they say, I think Peter's caught my cold, says Errol. Peter, you need a drink. And some people are just thinking he's just going to keel over while Ruffy's talking about this whole situation. But no, I really do appreciate the fact that you've mentioned that, folks. And thank you for your opinion on what is a very serious subject that I think deserves a good insight from yourself, Ruffy, because you've been there. But that's one topic that I think we will go back over time and time again. Just one little story that I caught there before we get into Champions League and some of the games from last night as well, Hugh. I spotted Ian Durrant's been named as the assistant manager at Kilwinning Rangers. To Chris Aitken. They've been together before. Durranty, we've had him on the show. We had him working regularly with us. He was absolutely brilliant. I love him, loved him as a player and as a person, top drawer.
Aye, and I mean, he did very well with Steve Aitken at Dumbarton. People forget about that. That was it. Just shows you how brutal football is, because Steve Aitken did so well there, and probably if it's all that, do you jump at the right time and the offer come up? You could have went on to bigger and better things. Good to see him back in the game. Kilwinning Rangers. I might take a wee trip down there now.
I feel as if it's a double-page spread. We've just thrown it out to me.
Can you imagine the players at Kilwinning Rangers and Ian Durrant walks into the dressing room to take training? It must be fantastic. And as we know, Ian is an enthusiast. Great fun.
He's good patter.
It'd be good for the dressing room. So well done to Kilwinning Rangers.
Yeah, absolutely. And when Ian says to you, look that way, but then sides just split the defence with a pass and just win the game for you. You'd be like, oh, how did he see that? That's what he was great at. Late runs into the box as well.
But I mean, I once interviewed him about the Dumbarton time, and we always reminisced about Souness and all this, and the way Souness would coach him, like, anything that goes over your head, don't worry about it, Ian, because I'll be at your back. I want you to just concentrate going forward, whether it's runs, passes, every thought in your head must be, how do we take the team forward, just wee insights like that. What a player.
Great player. Good person as well. Really enjoy his company. Last night, Ruffy, it was Arsenal 1, Manchester City 3. So it's a big transformation in the title race down south. Here's what the two managers had to say after this one.
It's both clubs. You are in the Europa League, and I think both clubs have the ambition to be in the Champions League, and not even just to be in the Champions League. They want to have a really impact in the Champions League, to be go along the group stage, be after the winter, go in semi-finals and finals and win even.
Of course, they are not in the best moment of their history, but they are Manchester.
They have one game left, so I consider they are top of the league. There's still many games to play. Now Champions is coming, Europa League is coming, many games, difficult for everyone. So, but important is the fact that could come here a few weeks ago, maybe with 8-9 points behind with 1 game left. Losing here will be almost over.
If you give 3 goals away the way we did, just give them the game. And especially when you don't put as well after the chances, the big chances that we had away, then the margin for error with them is almost 0.
Well, that's a re-edit for the podcast tonight, Ruffy. It's a Stonewall certainty. But as far as my apologies, that was not at the start Pep or indeed Mikel Arteta. as far as the league title is concerned, they've still got a game in hand, Arsenal, but I just don't think they've got what it takes. There's something short in them.
Yeah, and the teams, we keep talking about Rangers and Celtic, who's got the ability to take points off of them in our league, and there's not many. But if you look at the English Premiership, the teams that are below them are capable of beating Arsenal, the Newcastles, the Tottenhams, you know, and the Man Uniteds, you know. So I think Man City will believe they will drop points, as they probably will drop points as well. But last night again, you know, when the chips are down, the big players turn up. And De Bruyne's goal was fantastic. I think Haaland's first touch was fantastic as well. And that's what happens when you've got world-class players in your team. When the chips are down, they turn up.
And they've got depth there as well, Peter. They've got depth of a strong 17, 18 players. And you can't say about any of the players, Haaland takes an injury, you know, that's domino, because you just say, well, just bring in a South American wonderkind to replace him. With De Bruyne goes, well, they've got plenty in midfield that, I mean, they wouldn't want De Bruyne injured, but there's plenty to step in. I just don't think Arsenal's deep enough. I've never thought they were strong enough. I began to waver a bit when they got up to 8 points. I went, and Manchester City were having a couple of really poor results. But I've always fancied Man City win the league. The interesting question for you as a Liverpool fan is, do you think Liverpool can qualify for the Champions League?
No. In the top 4? No. But
they're only 9 points away from it, and they play Newcastle on Saturday night.
Yeah, I don't think they've got what it takes and I'm really hoping, I was really hoping to get a couple of tickets for Liverpool Real Madrid, which would be an absolute belter of a game. But I just don't think they've got enough to get them to 4th position, which is really their best hope. As far as the Champions League is concerned, I mean, I know Tam's just completely written them off, but you couldn't rule out Liverpool for the Champions League, if only for the fact that, the whole thing, you look at Paris Saint-Germain. Paris Saint-Germain got battered the other night there. They're in a bit of a turmoil. You're looking and you're saying to yourself, well, is anybody really frightening anyone else in that Champions League at the moment?
I would look at Napoli. I think
Napoli are a good bet.
Napoli's got up their sleeve is they're probably just a bit tied up with Scudetto. So they're going to now be thinking. I think the big worry about people that were punting Napoli at 14-1 and things like that, saying, well, when push comes to shove, because of the club's history, they're going to try and win the Scudetto, because they haven't won that since Maradona's time. But now, I'm not saying it's in the bag, but it looks more than likely. They could blow away any team. I still... because there's doubts about that. I agree with Liverpool. What you've got to know about Liverpool, they've had a poor season for a variety of reasons. We could do a whole programme on it, but there's still quality there. They're getting players back. They've been course and distance winners as well, so no, I wouldn't rule them out.
Yeah, Milan won, Tottenham 0, Paris Saint-Germain 0, Bayern Munich 1 was the Tuesday of the Champions League. Last night it was Dortmund 1, Chelsea 0. It's a great lesson in having somebody who's really quick in your team, Ruffy, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is, but they had chances as well. Chelsea they just never took them, and for all the money that they've spent, that kind of... But they've got the chance to overturn it. That's the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you see Dortmund going there and winning as well, do you?
No, I think they...
Have they blown it?
No, I think that's a really good result for Dortmund. It was the best result they could have gotten the night, because I agree with Ruffy. I thought Chelsea played really well. Narrow game. Chelsea certainly missed the better chances. I think that's partly down. It just looks like a team that's not getting any confidence. I mean, Felix... he missed really really good chances. Havertz is I really love Havertz as a player, but you really have to have somebody who can hold the ball up and get the team up the park and let even Havertz play. So there's real structural things that Mr. Potter, Graham Potter's got to solve there. But they're still in a good position in that tie. I think Dortmund will have to score to go through, and I think I think the balance of tie is still in Chelsea's hands.
Yeah, okay. And Bruges 0, Benfica 2.
I think Benfica, year on year in Europe, are beginning to sort of a dark horse and particularly, I mean, you see their stadium and the fans, you know, they get right behind them, and they've been getting results. So I think they could be there or thereabouts.
If you look at Benfica, there's the stat, we're talking about stats earlier on, and the stat that's flying about at the moment is the players that they've sold over the last couple of years, Peter. I don't know if you've seen that from Felix Telles. Imagine if they'd even half of them that hadn't moved on. There'd be stonewall certainties for the Champions League. I just think there's levels, and it's been proved that the English clubs we always talk about, English clubs got so much money, they're at the top. There's wee questions over them at the moment. Chelsea with a new structure. Man City, because they seem to always underwhelm in the Champions League. Pep, because he has had problems in the Champions League, not just with Man City, but with Bayern and with Barca that people forget. So there's always the questions over them. So I'm interested in looking at Napoli.
Yeah, of the games in the Europa League, which take place tonight, certainly Barcelona against Manchester United is the key one there. You can have a look at the other ones and draw your own conclusions on what one you would watch. But Salzburg, Roma, Barcelona, Man United, Ajax, Union Berlin, Shakhtar Donetsk against Rennes, Seville, PSV, Sporting Lisbon, Michelin, Juventus, Nantes, and Bayer Leverkusen, Monaco. I think all eyes will be on the Nou Camp, won't they? It's
absolutely. I mean, it's a Champions League game in the Europa League.
There's a few Champions League teams in there, to be perfectly honest with you. But the good thing is,
the other one's Ajax, by the way. I would like to watch them against Union Berlin.
Yeah, would you watch that?
I would watch, but not at the expense of Barcelona, Man United.
Well, to be fair, you could obviously maybe flick between the two of them. Knowing you'll have.
I'll also have my book.
Well, because of your literary stuff, you'll have one telly there and then one in another wall.
You could go up to Tom McManus's house and see 6 games.
That's a very good point, Rafi. Okay, that's your Europa League. Just one little story that came in that I think is a good one, Rafi. Josh Campbell signs a new deal at Hibs until 2027. I know that Lee Jones is a big fan.
He just announced it this morning. He was going to build the team round about him. So if you're going to give him that kind of contract, I'm sure it's good to see a good young player at a club putting pen to paper. So it's maybe just a wee incentive for all the other young ones that Tam keeps telling us is coming through. If they see him getting a good deal, they all might sign up as well.
I watched them against Dortmund. I went through to watch the under-19 game, and I was well chuffed with 2 or 3 of them. The boy Laidlaw, who plays midfield, is a really good player.
Yeah.
O'Connor, Gary's son, he was up against 2 man mountains, don't get me wrong, but he showed enough movement and quickness. Blaney at centre half, they were 3 that really stuck out.
Yeah, you just hope Hibs can have them in long-term deals, and then I always feel as if any club who's going to get a good season with a batch of youngsters has to be lucky enough to maybe have them for 2 years before they get cherry-picked, and that's the big problem, isn't it, Hugh?
And it's even, they're getting cherry-picked now, Peter, from very early
15 and 16.
You're talking about a Liverpool player that'll be on the bench probably in Champions League games, and Doak. I mean, he's away, 16. It's getting more and more difficult to retain.
And it's not the money that you sell them with, it's a sell-on. If you get that 20% sell-on.
Yeah, 20%, good luck with that. Yeah, absolutely. Ruffy, you gave us 2 of the 9. What were the 2 that you gave us?
I gave you Mark Hughes and I gave you Henrik Larsson. Go to Hugh first and I'll keep thinking.
Well, we went to Hugh earlier on today, so there's no point going to him.
He got 4, but he never told us he's 4.
Well, he doesn't need to tell you he's 4 because we gave him the 9 so he could pick any one of the 9. Anyway, the quiz question was fairly straightforward, which is quite simply 9 players in the last 40 years have played for both Barcelona and Manchester United. How did you fare in this one? Memphis Depay.
Okay.
Tough one. Mark Hughes, you mentioned. Laurent Blanc. I think that's a good one. That's a tough one.
I would never have got that.
I think a lot of people would have got Jordi Cruyff.
Yep, I got that.
Larson's a good one. Piqué is an obvious one. Victor Valdez is maybe one out of left field because he went to Manchester United and then nothing. Ibrahimovic.
Yes.
And then the last one, Ruffy, Alexis Sanchez. which kind of
It's a hard
catches
one.
people
I think that's
because
been
of
the
the
hardest.
Arsenal. Yeah, that's the toughest quiz we've had, isn't
I
it?
think that he was raising the bar for the toughest quiz with this revelation that I'd been a literary editor.
Yeah.
And he's decided we're not going to
go lowbrow, we're going to be highbrow.
Next week it's Melvin Bragg's coming on as one of our special guests.
Absolutely, I wouldn't. What about the competition? Still time for you to get involved before we announce the winner on next Monday's show.
It's another fantastic competition from PLZ Soccer. You can win this iconic replica Ajax shirt by answering this simple question. How many times have Ajax won the European Cup? Post your answers in the comment section below. If you want to double your chances of winning, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck with that. Ruffy's just said there, do you know the history behind that badge? There's a Roman history. Join us tomorrow when Ruffy reveals all on the Roman history of the Ajax badge. Thanks to Hugh for being fantastic today. He managed to get osmosis into the programme. Next week, who knows what he's going to get in there that will bamboozle Ruffy. From Ruffy, from myself, Peter Martin, from Hugh McDonald, thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button.